Hello. This is now, webinar is now broadcasting live. It's very odd that I can't see or hear any of you. I believe 150 had signed up this morning, so thank you very much. That's very overwhelming and lovely of you. If you have got any questions, rather than popping them in the chat, if you could pop them in the Q&A section, and then I will get to them at the end. So any questions, pop them in there and we will look at that at the end. I'm going to share my screen, so that could mean we all go wrong. Share. I am Emma. I started working with Axis VFX a couple of years ago, as I think it's really important to inspire and help people find a way into this industry, which is, you know, the point of Axis VFX is to make the industry more inclusive and more joined up. So that was why I joined at Axis VFX. So I'm an executive producer at Moonraker Visual Effects. We are a small visual effects studio in Bristol. We have a core staff of 15 and then we can expand up to 30 depending on the productions we have in-house and also depending on the different skill sets that we need. So that is Moonraker. So I started in television about 17 years ago, very long time ago. And I had a stint as an actor and then that wasn't working for me. So I got a job as a receptionist in a post house and I knew absolutely nothing about post-production. So I took it upon myself to learn one thing about every producer and director that walked into that building, and also in the background I was learning the post-production pipeline. So after 6 months I was lucky enough to get an interview as an edit assistant, and I managed to get through that interview by the people that I'd met and also the words that I'd learned knowing the pipeline. I still knew absolutely nothing. And then over the next 3 years, worked really hard as an edit assistant. And at the end of those 3 years, I was the facility manager, which was wonderful. And then I decided to move into production. So I worked with shoot crews and a little edit team. From there, I've worked in ITV, looking after the shoot crews for Emmerdale, Heartbeat, The Royal, Through the Keyhole. You might not know any of those references because you're too young, but I did all that. And then I've worked as a producer in an advertising agency, making adverts with really small budgets. And then as I've progressed, I was head of production in a lovely company doing adverts for Dyson, Harrods, Nike. And then I've moved into broadcast, where I've been doing visual effects for broadcast for the last 4 years. And I've worked with some really lovely people with Netflix, BBC, National Geographic, the History Channel. So I am so lucky in my career. I have done every part of the production pipeline. I've worked with lovely people and I feel inspired by the work that I see people do every day. And I feel inspired by how well people can collaborate on set and off set to create the incredible content that you watch on your televisions every day. And that's why I think it's important to do sessions like this so you can make a decision if this is for you. So let me just quickly show you some of the stuff I've been very lucky to work on. There we go. So bear in mind, this session is for 14 to 18-year-olds. So what knowledge you have is going to very much differ. So I've aimed this session at basics for you to learn the roles that are out there, but then we'll move on afterwards to my average day, or the average day of a visual effects producer. So from that, you'll have very different questions, I think. So pop them at the end in the Q&A section, and then we can go through them together. So there'll be plenty of time. So there are various roles in production. I'm going to specifically look at visual effects, but this could also run across the whole production pipeline from shoots into visual effects. So the first entry-level position we have there is a runner. Now, a runner is in a very privileged position to be able to see the entire pipeline, to see how an entire studio works. So while sometimes it can be frowned upon, actually it's very helpful if you don't know where you fit in to visual effects or where you want to fit into visual effects. You can see how everybody's working, how everybody's collaborating. Hopefully, if you're in a good company, they will have carved out time for you to learn the craft that you want to learn, and you'll spend some time on software or with people with the specialist skills that you want to learn from. So you will be doing tasks that you don't love, like making tea, maybe, like running a drive across town. But also, hopefully, there should be time, quality time in there for you to learn your craft of what you want to learn about visual effects. A data input or output technician. Now, there is so much data that comes into a visual effects studio. The amount that people shoot and the high quality formats that they're shooting in, 4K, 8K, means we are overwhelmed with data, which needs to be organized, stored and transferred into places we can find it, our artists can find it, in a naming convention that we understand and in a format that we can understand. So hugely important on the way in, but also hugely important on the way out of the building to make sure it's going to TV channels in a format that they can recognize and understand, and also that there's a quality control to the work that's leaving the studio. So that's data input, output. A visual effects editor. Now, they are a good role that sits in between the television or film production crew and the visual effects production crew, and they can edit together sequences of live action footage and footage that's pre-visualized or not yet to be made, so we can see where the gaps are in production. So they would be a good link between your television film production crew and your visual effects crew. Now, the next 4 roles differ depending on the size of the company you're working in. Now, I'm in a fairly small company of 15, 16 people, so the next few roles, I will probably do all of them. If you're in a big company, in a big established company, your role would very much be carved out and would be different. So production coordinator, that again is a good entry-level position into visual effects and post-production. As a production coordinator, you'll be helping the production manager, VFX producer, or other people in your studio who need help. And that could be anything from booking accommodation and travel for your VFX supervisor, from making sure that a hard drive is where it should be, to just answering phones. It's a good way to see what everyone's doing and to feed into everyone's workflow. So a good entry-level position where you can climb up the ladder. Production manager would be liaising with a producer to schedule crews and artists and making sure shots and sequences are created on time and budget. So they will help schedule artists in line with what the VFX producer has requested. VFX producer will spend a lot of time looking at that in a second. An accountant is exactly that, making sure everybody's being paid, that productions are running on time, that the studio is being paid so that their production can continue. as it says, and then a studio manager will look after everything else in that studio to keep the studio running. And there is so many skills that that's required to making sure artists have all the software that they need, to making sure that there's tea, coffee and toilet roll, to everything to keep a studio going, an integral role. And actually what's lovely about production and all visual effects, it is a team effort. What you see on screen couldn't happen without the input of all these people, so everyone is equally important. So we're going to move on next. And again, I can see questions coming in, and that's great, and I appreciate that, and I will come to it at the end. So we're going to look at the average day in the life of a VFX producer. Now, I apologise in advance if I use terminology that you don't understand. Pop me a question and I'll answer as best as I can. It can be quite complicated, and this is just to give you a careers overview to see if you'd like to pursue it further, and I can do other sessions or answer questions at other times if you go away and think of other stuff. So next we'll look at the day in the life. Oh, if she could get the thing working. There she is. So a day in the life of a VFX producer. What's really, really lovely about being a producer, and what I love about my job, is I never know what's coming next. Hopefully I have a little bit of an idea of what's coming next, but when that phone rings, anything could happen. A new job could come in, or new bit of technologies come out, or it's just wonderful. I never know what's coming next, and that's probably what's kept me going for so long. The nuts and bolts of our job is to make sure that projects are delivered on time and on budget, and that we communicate across all production teams. And when I say all production teams, I'm talking about the live action team that's shot. I'm talking about the team within your studio. And then it's likely that the shots that you're creating will move on to an edit house or an edit facility who will be prepping their timeline to go to channel or go to film or what other content provider there is. 1 minute. So if, say, a director has an idea, I want to make this shot or this program, they would phone up a visual effects producer or head of production and say, I've got a shot that I would like to put a house in, or I would like to blow a house up in this shot. A producer would then, the first and foremost they would do is find out how you do that, how long it would take, and how much it would cost. So we will budget that idea, if that's from a script or from a piece of pre-shot material. So you would go to your head of department or your head of 2D, head of 3D, head of production. How do I make this? How much, how long, how much is it going to cost? You would then find that out and report back. There'd probably be a bit of wrangling then, as a client said, I can't afford this, or I think there's a better way. So you would keep speaking between the different departments of how do I actually do this, until you come to a place where director is happy, studio is happy, and you decide to proceed. Once they've decided to proceed, you would then either speak to your head of production if you're in a bigger company. If you're in a small company, you would work out the schedule of the entire studio, and you would get the relevant team together. So that either would be finding a roto artist or cleanup to get rid of a house, or get FX artist to blow the house up, lighting and comp to blow it up. And you would then schedule your artists within your studio to create that work. Now, there are lots of different tools out there in the production world that will help a producer schedule their artists and keep track of the work that's going on. We, in our studio, use something called Shotgun, which is used a lot in industry. Some studios, it's overkill and it's too big. You can see a little bit of it here. So top left, you have got the different shots in a sequence, and they have got a shot number, so we can work out what is what. Then in the different coloured columns, artists can tell me the status of where they are in their particular shot or task. And then at the bottom right there is artist scheduling. So I can schedule a particular artist on a particular task, and this all feeds back in, and then I get a good overview of what everyone is doing and when. So if I'm on a little production of, say, 6 shots, I wouldn't need that. But if I'm on a massive film or broadcast of 60, 70, 80 shots, then it's essential, really. So I would advise, just if you are thinking of moving into production, to have a look at some of the different softwares out there, like Shotgun or F-Track is a good one. Another thing that would happen every day in a producer's life is they would have something called dailies. Now, dailies is where we set up meetings with heads of department, technical leads and creative leads and artists to make sure that the work that they are creating is within the director's vision. So are we creating what we said we would in a way that we should be, that's on time and on budget, that looks good? So in dailies, every day we'll be speaking to our artists and feeding back to them, giving them the creative input that they need to finish their task. And then there becomes a communication loop between artist and director, and producers very much in the middle, communicating, can I share this shot with the director yet? Are we happy with it? If yes, I can share with the director. Is the director happy? And then the feedback loop keeps going until the shot is signed off, which is always a nice day. So VFX Producer is very much in the loop of keeping communication and schedule all together, and communicating with people on set, with your artists and with the director and production teams to make sure we're on budget and schedule. And that line of communication is key. The more you communicate, the better your job is and the easier your job is. So that is it. So that all sounds fine, but it's likely if you're not on a film and you're on a smaller production that you might have 8 jobs running at the same time, which is fine. So you have one job running, you're bidding on another, you're communicating with directors on up and coming projects, and you're delivering one at the same time. So your day is always varied and exciting. You're speaking to people on entry-level running positions, to directors. So it's always varied and it's always filled and it's always fun. So, which is good. I know that that was quite a lot to take in. So here it is basically, you take your live action shoot or your script, you budget and you schedule it until the client signs that off. You confirm your team and you schedule artists in the studios, and then you make sure the artists are working with the correct material in the correct format. That's really important. Daily, so you've got that constant communication loop with everyone to make sure they're happy and they're doing what they should be doing, and then deliver it. Easy, really easy, if only it was that simple. So what skills can make a good visual effects producer? A can-do attitude, I would say, first and foremost. I've been doing this for 17 years and I do not have all the answers, and I will never have all the answers because shots get more complicated, technology always changes, artists' capability changes, there's so many different variables. And so I am very happy with telling someone, I don't know how something works, but I will find out. And I think that is your key skill. You're never going to know anything. Communication is a good thing to keep your artists informed, to keep your director informed, to keep your client informed. The more communication, the calmer everyone is and the happier a production is. So communication is key. A good knowledge of the visual effects pipeline, which is quite complicated. I don't know if you saw the session earlier. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of different artists. There's so much more information out there now online about the visual effects pipeline. So I would definitely say get to grips with that, because the more you know what technology can do and the different software can do, the more you know artist capability, it's easier to budget and schedule. People skills is a very, very important skill for lots of reasons. I'm finding this harder in COVID, if I'm completely honest, because I like to look somebody in the eye and make sure they know what they're doing, they're happy with what I've told them, that they're not stressed out and they're managing and coping, and that's difficult to do when we're working remotely. So I think it's important to get things done, but it's important to care about your team around you. I would say it was an important skill. Organisation goes without saying. Always a list. There is always a list. Problem solving, and that could be with things scheduling, budget, tech. These, yeah, if only things always ran smoothly. And work well under pressure. It can be a stressful environment, but I'm yet to meet anyone in any workplace that it's not stressful, but it is a fun place to be, and it's creative, and at the end of the day, it's only television, is what I keep reminding everyone in our studio. Top tips, top tips. Always be kind, because you never know when you'll meet someone again. When I was a receptionist, I have met a lot of those directors and producers when I've been producing or on set, or they've now become client signed. So always be kind and smile, because this is a nice job. Take every single opportunity that you can, because you don't know where a conversation will lead, or that person that you met, or, you know, be open to the things around you, and that's taking the opportunity. If you hide away, less things will happen. Manage expectations, and I would say that's manage expectations of your own capability. If you can't say something, can't do something, tell people and they'll help you. Manage expectations to your client of your studio's capability. If you're behind schedule, if you're not on top of the budget, do manage expectations. Cover yourself. Really important, and I'd love to say this to lots of freelance artists as well as production. Follow every single conversation you have with anyone with an email. Cover yourself. If you've agreed to do something, cover yourself and say when you've said you'll do it and how. If you get feedback from a client, don't just keep it in your head, cover it and write it back to them, because if they change their mind, it might sting you on later down the line. So cover yourself always, keep everything, write everything down. I would advise you to learn Excel, because it comes up everywhere. We use it, it feeds into Shotgun and all of our management software. You use budgets, schedules, it'll make your life a lot easier if you know Excel. You're not superhuman, I'm certainly not. So calendar reminders and management apps are your friend. I've got them going all the time. Every night before I leave, reminders tell me what I need to do for the following morning. And management apps, I've used something called Evernote, and it's on my phone and it's on my laptop and it's on my work machine. And if you leave yourself a note, it will appear everywhere. So that's helpful. And look after yourself. Don't kill yourself at work. Don't stay later than you need to. Make sure you're kind to yourself and get your job done and do it well, but also make sure there is time for you, otherwise you'll burn out. And it is just TV, so you are really important. Really important. And where are we next? So there's several different ways in. There are courses, Pearson College, Escape, the National Film School, lots of universities now doing courses. If you can, people doing low budget short films, go and get involved. It's invaluable to learn what everybody on the team's doing, to learn to contribute something. Apprenticeships. Now, I've had a look earlier for apprenticeships, and normally there's a lot more out there, but with COVID, there seems to be a lot less. So apprenticeships do happen, so keep on the lookout for them. Degrees. And then do try and gain experience as a runner or a production coordinator or a receptionist in the bigger studios, just to find a way in of speaking to people. And then networking is always helpful. If there is events on post-COVID or virtually, then get involved, go and speak to people, ask them questions. You know, that's how we learn. Nobody minds being asked a question. You're not going to get it wrong. That's how we learn, is by getting stuff wrong. There is also, you could join the Access VFX mentorship program, which I lead, which I'm very proud to lead. I've had some incredibly wonderful mentees through the mentorship program. And I wish I could give them jobs, some of them, if they were nearer to me. And it's a wonderful thing to do. If you go on the Access VFX website, you go on the mentorship page, it will take you 10 minutes to join. And then you will be joined with a professional within the VFX industry who will be able to help you further if this is something that you want to pursue, and could give you advice on CVs, on courses, on anything you want to know. So I'd really, really recommend that, is another thing. And then questions. I've got some questions here that someone emailed earlier, so I'll pop them there so I wouldn't forget, because and then you are all lovely and you're all asking questions as well. So let me answer these and then I'll go on the Q&A and I'll answer them. So move that so I can read it. What can I do right now to gain experience and help prove my chances of being recruited into an entry-level production position when studios begin to open again? I would say, if you haven't got any experience, I would go and learn the visual effects pipeline. And when I say that, what are the different job roles within visual effects, from a modeler to a texturer to lighting to composition to match move. Get to grips with what people do, because that'll make your job easier and your interview easier. If there are any running positions, go for that. If you can afford and there are low budget, small films going, get involved. There's a platform called Nerdo, and they look for artists for low budget stuff. So, you know, if you can afford to do that and not work, then do. The way artists create showreels, should someone who wants to go into production also create something extra to accompany a CV and cover letter? No, I've never done that. No, you don't need that. You just need a good CV and a good cover letter. And when you send a cover letter or a CV or an email to someone, attention to detail. I get so many emails that are blanket responses to other companies. So if you've written an email to me and you've said, hello at Frame Store and I work at Moonraker, I'm deleting you straight away. So attention to detail. Your cover letter can do a lot for you, and tailor it to that company. And if you know about the person you're writing to, tailor it to them, but do not do a blanket and send it to everyone, because it doesn't do you good things. Are there internships that cater to production roles the way for artist positions? Yes, there are, but I can't find any at the minute. So if I do find any, I'll put them up on the Access VFX website. But yeah, normally there are, but I guess it's harder with studios not being able to go in at the minute. Everyone I speak to in a production role emphasize the key skills of being organized, approachable, a team player. How do I prove that I'm all of those things in a way that stands out? By doing a good cover letter, you can really show that, actually, by not writing a blanket email addressed to the wrong person. I know that everyone says it, but until you get into an interview, we just have to trust what you've written down. So I don't think there's much more you can do unless you have any good references. I'm a freelance artist for many years alongside my VFX degree, and especially now have someone there from all I know production is where I want to be. How do I get recruiters to believe my aspiration of working in production over working? Well, I would say you are in a great position. If you've already worked as an artist and want to move into production, you're in an extremely strong position because you already know the pipeline. if you're currently working in a company, go and speak to your HR department or a producer to see if you can spend some time in the production department and gain some more insight and experience there. But I would shout about that if you're an artist and moving into production, because you have got experience within the pipeline already. So I see that as a definite strength. And then just moving to your other questions. Has virtual production and real-time rendering affected the workflow and future of VFX as a whole? Virtual production, I think, is working well because a lot of the big companies got their pipelines sorted out to virtually working remotely well. I think if it happens long term, there could be a creative breakdown because people collaborate better in a room together, but we're all managing to keep going. So I think working virtually wouldn't be a problem. And real-time rendering is giving VFX more strings to their bow, really. So I've worked in broadcast, but I'm now moving and doing a lot more in the immersive world. So creating immersive content for museums and visitor experiences, and we can use real-time rendering in a very positive way using AR and VR. So real-time rendering is actually making VFX more useful in different work environments, and museums and heritage is one of those places. So I think real-time rendering is making our industry more profitable and will do us good. So that's that. So from the quick background you have, would you say that work experience in particular, would be beneficial getting a good head start in such a career? I do think work experience is a good way of getting experience for both, just for you to know if this is something you want to get into. You know, if you spend 3 years at university and then decide it's not something you want to get into, then it's quite hard. So I very much learn on the job and worked my way up. But others who've been to university, it's done them in good stead as well. So it's whatever that comes personally. I think work experience is always a good thing. And if you could get it, definitely do it. What would you recommend studying at university? Lots of courses out there that involve production. The National Film School's production and escapes production courses are brilliant, so I'd recommend them. But yeah, there's so many more courses out there than there was when I was so long ago. Do you have prepared a showreel for a job in VFX production? No, you don't. We answered that. Do you have any specific degree or qualification? I have an acting degree. So yeah, which actually has been useful because I have been a shoot producer. So understanding how an actor worked has helped me set up shoots, which has helped me in post-production. So it is a bizarre way in, but it has helped me. It's not made me any less nervous doing this though. What does it mean to bid on a job? Good question. My apologies for using language that wasn't clear. A bid is also a word for a budget. So to budget a job is what a bid is. Rebecca, I've recently been applying for production coordinator roles at visual effects companies as I want to work within VFX more. I keep getting asked in applications, what is the more difficult shots on screen I've experienced? Could you someone explain what shots on screen means, please? And constitutes a shot in visual effects. So a shot in visual effects is literally one camera. So that's what defines a shot. So one shot is generally one camera move. So in visual effects, that can be a lot longer because our camera in the 3D space is able to do a lot more than it would be in live action. So when generally you change the camera, you've changed the shot. So if you've been asked what's the most difficult shot on screen, it's just the most difficult shot you've worked on. Feel free, if I haven't answered that right, tell me after. I think I've got that right. How did you get into the career? Did you do a degree? I did my acting degree. Oh, anyway, do runners usually get promoted or taken on by the business they work in? It depends on if they're a good runner or not. What's a good runner? So there are some runners who will stand and not do very much, and there are some runners who will get totally involved, will be asking questions, they're interested, they care, they show that they want to be there, they might have got to know an artist particularly well and they're helping out. If a runner or a production coordinator or anyone within your company has showed a big interest, that they're reliable, that they want to be there, then they will do well. If you go in as a runner position and you show that you don't care, then you won't do very well. You know, there are so many people trying to get into this now that you got to show that you want to be there. Are there many summer intern opportunities, entry-level positions right now? Not right now. It's been a terrible summer, so there's not as many summer programs as there would be, sadly. But hopefully, when we start unlocking, there will be. Would I have to do any specific A levels or degrees for any roles? Good question. Media would be good to do. Anything you can to learn the production process. So any courses that help you learn the production process. I mean, if you want to work in production, but you do an animation A level, I think that not necessarily, but it might help you because you understand how that process works potentially. But yeah, looking media A levels could help. What is the professional relationship like between a VFX producer and supervisor? Racing so that there are no surprises when a shot's finally delivered to the VFX house. We know that it's being tracked properly. We know that we have the technical information to do a shot. So the collaboration between any producers should always be strong, so that, yeah, they should be speaking a lot. Does Moonraker and other VFX houses tend to hire international student graduates and sponsor their visas? A lot of the bigger houses do. So say the Mill, Frame Store, MPC, I think we've done it once, but in COVID again, that's quite hard. So the bigger studios definitely would look at hiring international students and graduates and help with their visas. Hi Emma, what skills are in demand at Moonraker? At Moonraker, we are predominantly in broadcast at the minute. So the skills that we've got a lot of compositors in, we've got a couple of Houdini artists, we've got a motion graphics department, so we've got a lot of After Effects and Cinema 4D. Our 3D artists work in Maya. And then producer-wise, we've got a head of production and a couple of producers, so we're only quite small. In that list of questions you had there, I would be interested to hear advice on the question about organisational skills. So organisational skills is just doing something when you say you're going to do it. For me, it's calendar reminders, because I've got a memory like a sieve. I've got lists for everything and making sure I've inputted everything into Shotgun so that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing when I've said they will. Really enjoy the lecture stuff. My question is, does being a production manager for, let's say, a cartoon animated show different from managing production and visual effects? No. There'll be different skills and different software that they use in animation, potentially, but you're still scheduling artists and looking after budgets. So the core skills will be the same from animation through to visual effects. So I would say you know, once you've learnt the core skills of a producer, for me, that's been useful across live action, to motion graphics, to visual effects, to now moving into the immersive visitor world. So once you've got those core skills, they can be transferred across the different parts of production. How many jobs a year could you expect to take on? That completely depends on if you're doing a film. You might do one film every couple of years. In TV broadcast, depends on the size of the production. I've done a production that's lasted a year. I've done some that's lasted 6 weeks. TV advert, you could probably be looking at 6 weeks. A TV production, I've generally got about 5 or 6 on the go at any one time. An advert, I used to have 8 or 9 going at any one time, and a film, you'd hopefully, because it's so big, hopefully just be on the one. Is there fluidity between artist and production roles? If one starts as an animator, for example, by learning more about the production side of things, are they likely to pick up enough knowledge to branch out? I have no idea how to use any of the software my artists or our artists use. I am rubbish. Yeah, so you can, if you teach yourself and ask the other artists in your studio how to do stuff, but I can't do anything. But I think the reason I'm still doing this so long is because I'm so impressed what people come up with. I mean, the reel at the beginning, how do they do that? It blows my mind every day, still 17 years later. It's just incredible. So no, I can't, but if you wanted to, you've got the software available and teachers available, I'm sure you could. As a runner, is it a requirement to be able to drive for any tasks outside of the studio? If you were doing a shoot runner, then yes, I would say it would be useful to learn how to drive. If you're working in visual effects, then no, I would say you probably don't need to drive. Odd question, but in the past year when applying for jobs, I found that disclosing my disability has sometimes stopped me from gaining positions. It's made me worried about disclosing a disability for future roles. Should I be opened? Well, I'm disgusted that any future employer has discounted you if you've disclosed a disability and they're breaking the law, and I'm sorry you've come across that. I would need to honestly go and look at legally what the stance is with that. So I'm going to write your name down and I will ask, because I don't know, but legally I don't think you should be discriminated against, and I'm disgusted that you were. So let me find that out for you. What if I can't find colleges near me that can't support this industry? Is there any alternatives? Hopefully this makes sense. Colleges near me. Hopefully there are. I don't know if any online courses exist. I wonder if Escape do online courses. I'm sure that they would. So I would look at Escape for that. They might do an online course. How do you deal with difficult clients? Smile. Smile all the time. Sometimes it can feel really hard because you're telling an artist when to work, and that can make them upset, and they can feel upset that you're asking them to change their work that they love, but the director doesn't love it. So you've got two people who are not very happy with life and you're stuck in the middle. So sometimes you can really take that on board and carry that burden. But that's why it's really important to go home, switch off and be kind to yourself, because it's none of it's personal, everything's creative and we all have a creative opinion. So you smile a lot. And a lot with visual effects is clients and people get angry because they don't understand, and they don't understand the visual effects process, and they don't understand what that art is trying to do. So I find the more information you give a client, the more that you empower them with technical knowledge, the less angry they become, because you've given them the tools to recognize what you are trying to achieve and why there is a process to make that happen. So angry clients generally are angry because they don't understand what's going on. So the more you empower and communicate, that more that tends to deflate. Sometimes people just like a shout, but don't we all? Are there any software in particular that you would recommend learning? As a producer, I'd look at Shotgun if you can. I'd look at Excel, definitely, would be my top two. What software do they normally use? So as a producer, I think I've answered that, but software for visual effects, 3D are generally in Maya and Houdini, Fusion, and then comp are in Nuke or After Effects, and then motion graphics are in After Effects generally. Have you worked on any big movies, and if so, what? I haven't ever done a film. One day maybe, but no, I've purposely stuck to small companies, and that's been a personal choice just because I like the collaboration in a small studio, and I like the fact that my particular role spans about 4 or 5. I can work as a head of production and a VFX producer, and I can still do shoots. So I prefer a smaller company. It suits me better. Do you tend to recruit hire artists who are skilled in 1 or 2 software of a decent skill base? Skills with 1 or 2 software, it depends on the studio and what they're looking for. Generally, if a studio has commissioned a job, they're looking for a particular artist with a particular skill. If they're a smaller studio, they might look for a generalist who can do 3D and comp maybe. So it depends on the studio you're looking at, and it depends on what you want to do. Maybe you don't want to specialize. Some people do, some people don't. So that's up to you as well, I think. What kind of salary does a production producer earn? That's a good question. How long's a piece of string? So it depends of where you start and where you end up. I have no idea entry level. So, but a film producer who's way above me would earn, I don't know. I've absolutely no idea. I guess if you're in film and you're high up, you must be on 70 grand plus, must be 100 grand. Who knows? It depends what you're working on. Completely depends what you're working on. I'm not on that. What will you do if a project is failing or you miss a deadline? Never missed a deadline. You are really honest about it, because if something's failing, you're learning very quickly that it's failing, and there will be multiple signposts of why something is going wrong and why. So you will be highlighting that as early as possible, and that's again in covering your back. I send an email every Monday morning to every client I've got, outlining what I think I'm doing that week on that job and why. And that tends to cover me, because everyone's very clear on what my purpose is that week. And if they haven't told me something, it's clear they haven't told me, because week after week it's not appearing. So that tends to cover me. From a bidding budget point of view, how good do you have to be at maths? I am awful at maths, and that's why you learn at Excel and have a calculator. Did you work your way up from an entry-level job, or did you get yourself? I worked my way up from receptionist to exec. So I did work my way up. Hello, thank you for this event. Does a good CV look like for someone that wants to get in management? Is there anything I can make it stand up? Good CV is so important, so important. The layout of it's important. The content you put in there is important. There are example CVs online if you Google, but time and effort into that CV is the first thing that's people are gonna see. And if somebody couldn't be bothered and hasn't spent any time with it, I'm really sorry to say that I don't really look at them, because I haven't got time. So a really good cover letter, I've said this before, is absolutely key. Don't write, if you're writing to me, don't say hello frame store, because I'll delete it, because if you haven't bothered to get who you're writing to write, then the rest is not going to be right. Really take time and effort, and your CV really take time and effort. And again, an Access VFX mentor could really help you with this. So if you are thinking of looking to get into this career, I would say get a mentor who can help you with your cover letter and CV. I'm a VFX and film graduate for entry level opportunities. Well, good luck. I hope that you find something. There's some stuff in the chat. Oh, thanks for putting is experience in graphic design transferable, or should I be building a more tailored portfolio before I apply for a role in visual effects? It depends what software that you are in. If you, in our studio, we do use After Effects and motion graphics. We're using it on a Netflix series at the minute, where people weren't able to go out and shoot. They're plugging gaps in their production with motion graphics and more visual effects. So if you are in After Effects, I would say kind of start looking at your comp skills, maybe. If you can comp in After Effects, that's still done quite a lot. But yeah, I mean, you have learn the software if you're in production and graphic design, definitely you can move into VFX. That's no problem at all. As a runner, is it a requirement to be able to drive for any tasks outside the studio? Shouldn't be in visual effects. It could be if you are on a shoot. You could get runners going here, there and everywhere for a shoot, but not in a visual effects studio. We have got 5 minutes left, which I am very shocked. Do you mind describing your organisational approach tools in more details, please? There's a question you showed on your screen. No, I don't think you mentioned. How do you prioritise? As a VFX producer, do you spend much time on set? No. As a VFX producer, no, I'd say you don't spend any time on set. You would send your VFX supervisor there who've got a different set of skills. So you spend I'm going to break it to you. You don't get to meet famous people. This is not glamorous, sadly. Oh, I did go to Simon Cowell's house once, but yeah, you are not, you're not going on set or doing anything glamorous, sadly. You are in the studio with your artists, which, you know, has its benefits, I have to say. I've got a family, and so traveling and being on set would be very, very difficult for me. So I'm grateful to not be on set all the time. And how do you prioritize? I prioritize in order of deadline, which deadline's coming up first, and do it that way. And then I'm very open and honest with the rest of my team. If I'm struggling with a deadline, then I ask for help, which I think as all studios, we should get better at asking for help when we need it. Is there anything else? What should you do if you can't afford escape? Oh, that's a good question. I don't, if you can't afford escape, try and get, if you can, try and get an entry-level position in somewhere as a runner, or, you know, try and even get reception, you know. That's where I started, and I got to know everyone's name and chatted to people, and that's how I got my way in. That is a good way in. How diverse is the industry? Not as diverse as it should be, which is why I joined Access VFX, because for the first 10 years, I was the only female in the room of a room of lovely, talented white men. And that is getting better, and that's what Access VFX are pushing, and that's, you know, it is getting a lot better. But this is definitely an industry for everybody, and everybody is welcome at the table, and their voice should be heard. And that's why I think Access VFX is an important movement within visual effects, and that's why I think it's important to do events like this so that everybody feels welcome in our industry, because you are. Which is probably a good place to stop. I hope that was useful. If you do have anything else come up or any questions, do send them through to Access VFX, who will forward them on to me, and I will get back to you with anything you need to know, really. It is a lovely community, and people out there are nice, and it is stressful at times, but everything's stressful at times, and at the end of the day we're making pretty pictures, so what a wonderful place to be in. So I am Thank you for all those nice messages. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you all, and thank you for having me. And I hope lockdown isn't too stressful, and I will see you soon, I hope. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.